Hi, I'm Adri. This is Imperfectionates, and today we're going to talk about everything I made in 2025. I think we're going to go by category, and let's just jump into it because I'm already getting sensory overload from everything surrounding me. Let's start with crochet. I think I only made 3 crochet projects last year. It started with the Swan Lake skirt. I can't get much further away because I'm in my bed, but I'll also insert a picture of the full thing. The pattern is, I think, Stitched by Emma. Yeah, Stitched by Emma. It just kind of came across my TikTok feed and was the thing that got me back into crafting this year. I made it with a combination of Karen Simply Soft that I thrifted, some cotton crochet thread in a couple different colors, and then I think this is the Karen 1 pound. I got it when Joann's was closing. I would say my only regrets about this is that the Karen Simply Soft was great. The pattern called for DK weight, but I knew that the Karen Simply Soft was like pretty thin and drapey, so it would be fine. But the Karen 1 pound was a little thick. And I think if it had been at the top, it would have been okay, but it ends up impacting the drape a little bit, being right here in the middle. I also made it full length, and as much as it has a like wonderful, fun drama, it does catch on every single thing around me and get under my feet on the stairs. So I kind of wish I'd made it like a midi length. It was really fun to make, but these like longer strands were really hard to get even. I would love to make it again, maybe with more variety of yarn. So I do really like how the cotton thread looks, but I think it'd be cool if I did one of the thinner layers with a mohair, so you have like a whole range of textures. I think it would really play into the kind of ethereal patchworkness fairyland vibes of this skirt. Okay, next I made this crochet bandana. I followed a tutorial on YouTube, but I don't know which one. I like it a lot, but no one complimented me on it. Should I make a tier listing of all my created projects based on who's complimented it and how genuinely and enthusiastically? Because I really liked this until no one was complimenting it, and then I was like, is it bad? Is it ugly? I'm guessing it's just because it's a bandana, so it's always bunched up on my head, so people aren't really paying attention. But a very functional project. I wear a lot of bandanas in the summer. And then finally is the Varsity Top by Erin Rico. I'll also include a picture of this on. I'll try to include pictures of everything either on or like laid out nicely. Not everything, the bandana is just gonna be how it is. There's a pattern for this you can buy on Ravelry, but I actually just followed the free YouTube tutorial. It's just a really simple crochet raglan. The first time I wore this, I got complimented twice. Once by an older lady and we stopped and chatted a little bit about crochet, and then I turned the corner and there was a young man and he said I was gonna compliment that, but then the other lady got there first. And I don't get a lot of compliments from young men, especially about my arts and crafts. So although I like to think that I value the opinion of men less than women, sometimes it's just a supply and demand thing. It's, you know, it's rarer. Okay, that's all for my crochet makes. Now I'm gonna do knit sweaters. Okay, this first one I might be lying to you. I think I finished this in 2025, but I might have finished it in 2024 and just not been able to wear it until 2025. I think I finished it early 2025. And that's this self-drafted striped sweater. It's hard to call it self-drafted when it's just 2 rectangles that I seamed together at the shoulders and sides and then picked up stitches for the arms. This was just made with like leftover scraps of acrylic and wool acrylic blends that are worsted weight. Knit on size US 10 needles, which is a bigger size than worsted weight usually calls for, but I actually think that this is the gauge you're supposed to get with worsted weight. Because I've been doing some other projects where I've actually been gauge swatching and I don't get gauge until I use US 10 needles. And things that I make on the, is it US 8 that worsted weight usually calls for, end up feeling a little tight. So I wear this a lot because I like the drape of it. I also get complimented on this a fair amount, despite how simple it is. I think that it kind of makes my posture look bad because the lack of shaping, any shaping at all, means that it sits in a weird position on my shoulders that I feel like accentuates bad posture, but no one else mentioned it. So then we've got the sweater I'm wearing. This is the Tin Can Knits Flax Worsted. This is my first like actual sweater pattern that I followed. I made it a little cropped again. I'll show you a fuller picture, but I think that if I were going to start knitting again for the first time, obviously not something that I can do, but if I was gonna start knitting again for the first time, I would probably do the Florence Miller step-by-step sweater. Like, I like this a lot. The pattern was very easy to follow, but I think the style is just a little outdated. Like the wider collar, the like, it's not super oversized like trendy sweaters are these days. Maybe this is just me being insecure about approaching 30, but I feel like because it's a little outdated, it makes me look older than I am. But I do like styling it very specifically for going to ballet class, and I think if I went ice skating I would wear this with one of the Popflex pirouette skirts, and then I think that that would like pull it all together and make it look a little more intentional. And I also think the turtleneck helps. And this was just knit with the leftovers from the Karen 1 pound. The color was pink, I think, and it was really hard to find the pink anywhere else once Joann's closed. Like, most places that sell this Caron 1 pound sell the soft pink, which is a different color, and some will even list it as just pink, but it'll actually be the soft pink. So I ended up having to order a second one from Yarn Inspirations, and that was the only place that had this color. This is also an example of one that I feel like my gauge ended up too tight. Like, it doesn't have the drape that I would have wanted, but I do wear it, so I guess I can't complain that much. And then the last sweater I made this year is Kara Eng's Williamsburg sweater. I actually made 2 of these, both with basically the same yarn. The main yarn I used for them was Premier anti-pilling acrylic, super bulky, and then I just kind of held it double with miscellaneous white and off-white acrylic, which in this one, which is my first one, which is for me, I made the big mistake of not really recognizing the difference between white and off-white. Like, I knew they were different, but indoors, look at that. You can barely tell. I know that you can't even tell where it's white and where it's off-white. But when I go out into actual sunlight, I forgot that white is fluorescent, so it looks a little silly out in natural light, and yet I wear it out in natural light all the time. Not really anymore because it got too cold now. I need to wear coats, and this is a little too bulky to go under coats, but it's a perfect fall sweater. And the Premier acrylic is just the softest acrylic I've ever touched, and especially their anti-pilling acrylic. It's so soft and plush and wonderful. I get a lot of compliments on this one, and this one specifically, when someone compliments it and then I say, thanks, I made it, they go, really? You made that? Which is like a whole new level of compliment, because I feel like complimenting something that is handmade because it looks handmade is still a good compliment, but complimenting something just because you like how it looks and then later realizing it's homemade, that's crazy. And then I guess in a category of its own, I have a vest that I don't have with me anymore. I gave it away to my sister, but I'll include a picture. It was the Made in the Moment T-Rex vest. I'm obsessed with the Intarsia chart for it, and it also got me super hooked on Intarsia. It was really fun to knit, but it was made to measure, and there weren't really any adjustments for the shoulder. And as a vest, it meant that if you made it in the larger sizes, the shoulders would end out like up here. And I can kind of understand with made to measure, you're already asking people to do math and they don't want to do that. And so asking them to do the kind of advanced math to make the shoulder depth work for different body sizes is kind of a big ask. But I also feel like you can't really claim that a made to measure pattern is size inclusive if you don't include modifications for how to make the larger sizes fit the same as the smaller sizes. I did my own modifications to make the shoulders come in a little bit, and they were fine. I would have liked them to maybe be in a little more, but that was just my math. That was my fault. My much bigger problem was that it just had too much positive ease. It was kind of weird because in all of the pictures of the person who made it and of the other testers, it seemed like most of them were making it without positive ease or with negative ease, but the pattern called for positive ease. And I should have just ignored the pattern, but I didn't. So it had too much positive ease. I also used my bust instead of my upper chest measurement, so it had way too much positive ease, and it had a square neckline, which again, the people wearing it and modeling it, it didn't have a square neckline, which I kind of feel like the test knitters should follow the patterns, or it should include in the pattern what modifications the test knitters made. Or even the person who made the pattern, the neckline was different. It had more of a turtleneck or like a mock neck. I think I'm going to remake it with a different vest base. I found on Ravelry just a miscellaneous knit flat v-neck sweater vest that I'm going to try to do the Intarsia chart on for myself, but I gave the original vest to my sister. I think that was all the garments. So now on to accessories, and specifically let's start with non-sock accessories. We're going to save the biggest category for last. Okay, so this pattern is the Dice Bag of Minimal Magic. I don't even have this listed in my Ravelry. I used some miscellaneous single ply yarn that I got from Burka, and then the second color was a hand spun. And Burka is a Society for Creative Anachronism event. It's a market day at Burka. It happens every winter, I think it's like February, and it's basically like medieval reenactment event, which is significant because I made this from a dice bag pattern, but intended to be a pouch to bring to my LARP. I cast at a LARP out in Western Mass, and one of the main things you do with casting is fighting. And one type of fighting is using spell packets, which are little like scraps of fabric around some like rice that you throw at people. And so when you're being a spell casting fighter, you need to have a bag to hold the pouches in, or they like comically bulge in your pockets and you still run out. And so I made this so that I could use it for my spell packets, but I actually forgot it last time I went to the LARP. I also made this pattern 4 other times, but only successfully once, because this is a honeycomb brioche stitch and it's really hard to correct when you mess up. So I made this one and it was all fine. And then I tried to make it 3 more times with the same yellow and blue. I think these are like dollar store Premier yarn. I tried to make with these 2 colors 3 times, and every single time I got almost to the end and then made a mistake and had to fully undo it because I can't fix the brioche. And so I decided these 2 colors were cursed, but they still live in my project bag because I want to make one out of these 2 colors. But then finally I made one, which I have no photographic evidence of, in like some purpley acrylic yarns that I gave as a gift to my friend for her birthday. And you might think that the frustration of messing up this pattern 3 times would turn me off knitting, but actually knitting these was what got me back into knitting. The other accessories I made 2 Sophie hoods. Both have been given away. Pictures here and here for my cousin Erin and her stepmom Karma. The one for Erin I knit in some thrifted Karen Simply Soft, and the one for Karma I knit in Knit Picks Twill Worsted in the color Graphite Heather. And then finally something I made at the very end of the year. I made this loon headband. Wait, why does it look cute here? It usually doesn't look good with my hair, but I think it looks really cute now. This was the loon headband by CM Knits. There's also a sweater pattern that she made with this same color work that I really want to make. It looks so cute. And this was for a Heated Rivalry make along that my yarn store had, and was how I knew that I chose the right local yarn store of all the miscellaneous yarn stores around Boston. I knit this while I was like absolutely in crunch time for finishing my gift knits, and I definitely didn't have time to do it, but it took me like 2 days. I knit it while reading and watching Heated Rivalry, so it was all very thematic, and I had to. And this was knit in the gray is some of the leftover Knit Picks Twill Worsted from the Sophie hood, and the white is just a miscellaneous white acrylic that I had in my stash. Which, like, genius hack if you're making something that has this kind of fold is to put the soft yarn in the part that goes against your head and the cheap yarn not touching your skin. I don't even want to take this off because it finally looks cute, whereas every day that I've been wearing it out because it's been super cold it has looked bad. But it is kind of warm inside, so off it goes. Finally, for things that I like knit / crocheted, I have socks. I think I made 10 pairs of socks this year, which is pretty impressive considering I didn't start knitting socks until August. The first pair of socks I knit, I don't have with me because they're dirty and like super dirty, buried in my laundry. But picture here, they're the Summerly I'm So Basic sock pattern, and they are made with just Peyton's Croy and Celestial colors. I made them on 56 stitches, size US 2 needles. They fit wonderfully, I love them. The next pair I'm going to try to hold at a slight distance so you can't see. They're still dirty, but they're just not buried in my laundry. These are the Summerly Sunny Side Up socks from the Sock Project book that I knit in Peyton's Croy, also on size US 2 needles. I don't remember what all the colors are. They're in my Ravelry, but I know that the main color is still the Celestial colors. These were knit on 72 stitches, and they have an afterthought heel, which I really like the fit of. These are my most worn, most favorite of the socks I've made so far. And then we have the socks that are on my feet, which I thought about maybe trying to like lift up my feet to show you, but my bed is just so crowded with projects right now. And I think if I moved, I would ruin the camera angle because let me show you what my camera setup is. This is me now on my laptop camera. My phone is the thing that's recording. This is propped on a pillow. So I don't wanna shake things up too much. So again, picture here, I knit the cuff with Cascade Heritage, and it's the Summerly Cuff Club Volume 2. I think it's the August cables, and then the main sock is with the Boston Fiber Company BFC colorway on the Baker Street fingering base. I will and have talked extensively about these socks on my channel because these are the basis of my perfect sock experiment that is ongoing, but the main thing is that they're 72 stitches on size US 1 needles, and they fit just okay. But I'm wearing them today over compression socks, and something about the friction of the compression socks is actually keeping them up better than usual. So, okay, last pair of socks that I made for myself is a coordinating mismatch, the Stardew Valley winter and spring socks. These are clean. I put them through the dryer and then don't like fold them nicely or anything because they're fine once they're on your feet. And as usual, picture here, I actually made each of these socks 3 times. So like one for this pair and then a full pair of both, which were gifts for my roommate. I saw a TikTok a couple days ago of someone making a joke about like how they expect people to react when they're given a gift knit and how they actually react. But when I gave my roommate these socks, they reacted exactly like how the person said they expect someone to react when given a gift knit, like multiple minutes of just gushing about how incredible they are. So that's why I do what I do. Okay, I'm about to make a tiny bit of editing work for myself, but it's fine. I have 3 pairs of socks that I made that I don't have with me because they were Christmas gifts. I have the Summerly Comfort Core socks, which I made for my cousin-in-law. I have just a pair of basic vanilla socks that I made with a self-patterning yarn for my uncle. And then I have the Summerly Mermaid Avenue socks that I made for my aunt. And the yarns were Universal Yarn Zesty Sock with some Knit Pick Stroll, Universal Yarns Easel with some Knit Pick Stroll, and an indie dyed Knit Pick Stroll dyed by Chemnitz Creations with some of the leftover Boston Fiber Company BFC Baker Street fingering. 64 stitches, 72 stitches, but it's a tighter sock, and 72 stitches, US 1 needle, US 1 needle, US 1.5 needle. I loved them all. They were all complimented, though not as profusely as the Stardew Valley socks, but to be fair, not as deserving as the Stardew Valley socks. And they actually have one gift knit that I haven't given away yet. These are for my friend who I am actually going to see this afternoon. So last we'll see if these are just a really vanilla sock with a afterthought heel in the leftover Chemknit Creation stroll, and then some navy stroll for the accent colors. I knit these on 56 stitches, and the length, it was like 8 inches, I think. I truly have no idea what size foot this person has, but I know much smaller than me, so I was hoping that the 56 stitches would be fine, especially because like stroll is just so stretchy that it relaxes a lot. And I guess these are miscellaneous accessories, not socks, but they're for your feet, so I put them here, which are my 2 pairs of sailor slippers I made for my cousin and my cousin-in-law, Erin and Kelly. Okay, now final section is maybe not everyone's cup of tea, so you don't have to stay if you don't want to, but I'm going to show you some of the yarn I dyed this year. And there's also going to be maybe some spoilers / previews, depending on how you think about it, for a video that I'm making that'll be coming out in a month or so. So we start with like a bunch of swatches that I did of a bunch of the different Dharma acid dye colors, and then a couple of what Chemknit Creations calls yarn mops, and I can't decide if I should copy or have come up with my own word for it. But here's one of the things that's a preview and or a spoiler. I think that I thought, and what I ordered was the Wool to Dye For Platinum sock. I think this is the Wool to Dye For Platinum DK. I have some of the Platinum sock coming next week, so I will know then, but I think that this is the Platinum DK. This is too thick, but I'm still going to use it for socks because honestly, it's more of a sport weight DK, and I just don't care enough. I have all these micro skeins, so I've got to do something with them, and I guess I could make a DK sock, but I think that just with all this small amount of single colors is going to make more sense as accent colors in other socks. And I'm storing these for now in my Dunkin' Donuts Munchkins tin. Literally the day they dropped this, I was like, I have to have it. After I did some of my like generic swatching, I ended up with some problems with the peacock blue color. Basically, I realized that it was just way lighter than I was expecting it to be, and I suspected, and I confirmed in my experimentation, that basically in the dye stock that I made, it fell out of solution and ended up much lighter than it should have been. And I mean, it fell out of solution in like 10 minutes. I mixed it and then used it. So I did some experimentations with like dyeing it at different depths of shade from both the dye stock and mixing it up plain, and determined that the dye stock was the problem. And I'm going to make some sort of fade sock with these because now I have like 6 of them. The only really unfortunate thing about that is that in the initial like swatching, mixing colors, I mixed the peacock blue to get this gorgeous green, and I'm trying to recreate it, but I don't know what the depth of shade of the actual blue is because it's lighter than any that I was experimenting with. I've tried all the way down to I think 0.25% depth of shade, and it's still darker than this. Like this was the 0.5% depth of shade measured out, compared to I think this one was the 1% from the dye stock. So further testing required. And this was made with I think 0.25% depth of shade of the blue, or I think specifically it was I think it was in an 1/8 depth of shade, as in like, because I was mixing it with the yellow, so the yellow was at half depth of shade, and then it was an 1/8 for the blue, and still a little bluer than the original. I've also got a couple of prototypes for the same idea. One of the first ideas I had when I was thinking about starting dyeing, it was like roughly in the fall when I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about what would an autumn colorway look like to me, and the vision in my mind was my high school bus stop through the like foggy fall morning where there was a Dunkin' Donuts. That would be my hope at that, like at the foggy, horrible early 6 a.m. waiting for the bus. And so the first one, I did way too much of the pink and orange, and then I didn't really have any, or like didn't have enough depth of shade of the gray or kind of beigey color. And so then I tried to go over it with some like warm gray, but I put way too much. And so it ends up looking more like a Dunkin' Donuts on fire. In my mind, I kind of comically call this bring back cookie butter donuts in parentheses threat, because Dunkin' Donuts on fire. How I feel about them taking away cookie butter donuts. And then I did this one, which was closer to what I was looking for, but I basically dip dyed into a like beigey color and a warm gray, and then overdyed, or I think I might have done these first and then dip dyed, but painted on some pink and orange, and it was much closer, but it was a little too warm toned. I want it to be more like cool gray to warm gray, and instead it's like warm gray to beige, and I wanted the pink and orange to be a little more stark. So I did this one, which is like in theory right, but I got the depths of shade wrong because I forgot that dip dyeing would only have it exposed to half, and so I ended up being about 1% depth of shade on the half, so I should have been doing 0.5% depth of shade on the half for a quarter. So I made some miscalculations, but this is almost there. I also did some speckling experiments and got this absolutely crazy, chaotic, but beautiful, heavily speckled colorway. I was basically just trying to like test out some different speckling methods. So like mixed with citric acid, not mixed with citric acid, using a little like strainer versus using my fingers. So it's very educational, and I think it looks great. Did use more dye than it probably should have. I also made, and these two are going to be the ones that are spoilers, some like fluorescent dyes. This one is yellow, fluorescent yellow, and then those are speckled, and then it's kettle dyed in gray to get this insanely gorgeous green. This was not the intended colorway. I wanted it to actually be gray and yellow, but then I got kind of curious, like what would happen if I speckled the yellow and then dyed the gray, and it ended up beautifully green. So I'm really happy with how this turned out, even though it wasn't at all what I was planning. And at some point I'll do what I was actually planning, which was to do the gray first and then speckle it and then steam set it so that hopefully the yellow stays yellow and the gray stays gray. And then this one, this is like the best yarn I've ever dyed. I basically resist dyed it, so I kept it in a skein, dyed it in black, took it out, let it cool a little bit, reskeined it in a different orientation, dyed it navy, took it out, and then dip dyed it in 3 different fluorescent colors, yellow, blue, and pink, to get this like insanely gorgeous fluorescent rainbow through the dark patches. If I ever become a professional dyer, this will legit be one of my colorways, even though it's super time consuming and not very repeatable, because it's like an hour for the 2 resist dyes and then like an hour and a half for the dip dyeing, and like probably 10 minutes of each session of the dip dyeing is actual active time rather than just letting it sit. So it's like kind of a labor intensive one that is not the easiest to scale, but it's so gorgeous that I would do it. And then obviously we had to use some yarn mops, or whatever else I decide to call them. I have got, this one was the yarn mop I used for a lot of the swatching and the speckle, the first like this speckling one. This one was used for some of the Dunkin' Donuts colorways, but there wasn't a lot on it, so I decided I would also do some like over dyeing with random leftover dyes, and I think looks absolutely gorgeous. And then this one was used for a couple different days. It used for one of the Dunkin' Donuts one, used for this one, and also used for these fluorescent ones. So this one has a bunch of different colors on it. And these are kind of a combination of bases. Like these are the Knit Picks Hawthorn, which is a Highland wool and nylon blend. These ones are 50 gram skeins of the Sheila's Gold, which is an 80-22 ply. And the 80 is Superwash Merino. And then these are Nomad Snowdrift, which is a 75-25 merino nylon blend that I think is my favorite of the bases I've used so far. And these, as I said previously, were supposed to be the Platinum Sock, which is a 75-25 merino nylon blend, but actually I think they're the Platinum DK, which is the same blend, but DK weight. So I think that's it. Let me know if you want me to also do a what I plan to make in 2026 video. I'll probably make it anyway, but let me know if you want it. I also have 3 dyes hanging up over there drying, but I made them in 2026, so you can't see them. Okay, now I have to figure out how to put all of this away. Bye.